Thank you. Working group done. Good measure. Good process there. And so I'm encouraging all councillors that, you know, if you're thinking about a task that needs to be done, think about a working group set role. And no, you haven't got one. I'm just coming back to the other one. Yeah. Right, so the last item on the agenda before lunch, which we may get through, I think this is the last one, is it?
It's the last
open agenda item, and is the Mayor's letter of expectation for the LTP and the council strategic framework. Now, I did find a slight error in the letter of expectation, sorry, and I did mean to highlight it. It's still written as if it was written before the election on page, it is a tidy up. So look, I'm just going to change the wording of the letter to remove the line that indicates that it's going to brief an incoming council. Is that all right? So we're just going to assume that I can have the right to do minor omissions and errors. So and again, I've had a couple of people raise a couple of items in the strategic framework, and yeah, we'll have a debate about that. So do we? Well, I'll move the recommendation, and do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Jimmy Chen. Right, now we'll open it up for questions, and we've got staff at the end of the table as well.
Would you like me to go down that end of the table and join my staff?
No, you can provide advice from here.
Okay. I think that would be
good.
Yeah,
so we'll start with the letter. So are there any questions about the letter? We're all good with the letter? Okay. So so why don't we just deal with the letter first and just get that signed off. So just with minor amendment. Is there any debate on the letter? Yeah. So sorry, I should have. I shouldn't have said trust me. I know what I'm doing. I did explain that it is written. It has been left. One paragraph has been left as if it were written before the election. And of course I can't find it now.
This reinforces the need for an early sign-off on the student by the incoming council. But that bit's okay. Page 8, that's okay. Because we are the...
Councillors wish to certify that the general expectation of post-election community will expect that.
Look, I'll have a look for it. Yanni, do you want to debate it? You're far away.
Page 8 of the letter.
There's a reference under community and stakeholder engagement, paragraph 2.
Yeah, should be by the new council rather than by the incoming council.
Yeah, can you just take out that sentence? So that was the one that I wanted removed. Is everyone good with that? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Right, Yanni.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge a really significant change of direction on page 147, page 6 of the letter. And it's the paragraph that says it's vital important, probably should say vitally important, that infrastructure projects are clearly visible to community boards and their residents, with hyperlinking from the capital program as part of the LTP process. And I just really want to commend you for adding that in. I think it's really critical. I would hope that that can also extend to the program level budget so people can see the visibility within those as well if possible. But I just wanted to acknowledge that request because I think it's really fundamental that everything else is great. It's the high level and it's important stuff that needs to be done. But if our community can't understand what we're putting out for them to engage in, it's pretty fundamental to their participation. So I just want to acknowledge that being in there, strongly support it, and I just hope that that can be considered as extending to the program levels of budgets as well. Thank you.
Mike?
I've just, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. So I'm just a bit concerned because obviously we've workshopped this and a lot of this stuff was done. I had to go to another meeting and then changes
We're
have
doing the
been
letter of
made.
expectation only. Yeah. So, Jimmy Chen?
Yeah, first I would like to kind of acknowledge the mayor. I remember mayor initiated this draft one, and we have a further discussion to contribute because this rate of expectation actually to give the new CE and the management level they can follow our the direction. That's a strategic direction for them to establish those the new long-term plan, particularly for the 2021 to the 31. And also we highlight all and the existing status, the situation. I think that's all inclusive cover, very good. So I acknowledge the mayor done a great job, and also acknowledge all the fellow council that contribute to this one.
Sarah?
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge the Mayor for the work on the risk and resilience framework that I think is incredibly important. This LTP is going to see us from 2021 through to 2031, and that's past the time where we have as a council set ourselves a target of halving our citywide carbon emissions. And so I think that making sure that the LTP keeps that in mind and the infrastructure strategy is really, really important, and sets a really good signal for the city that we will take that leadership role on. Thanks.
Okay. Andrew?
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge that all of this work is a big step forward in terms of making our expectations clear and taking a strategic and concise approach to the building of the LTP is certainly leaps and bounds beyond what we took over when a number of us came here in 2013, and I think it represents the significant progress that's been made both in a strategic approach and our approach to the LTP, to consultation and to the finance strategy in the period of time that we've been here and we've been working on this. So I'm pleased with the content, but I'm also very pleased with the process. I think it represents an intelligent and strategic approach that everybody can only benefit from.
Anyone else before I close it off? I will say a couple of words on this. So I think that this letter of expectations is really important because the LTP is a very important one, because it does really set a line in the sand in terms of forward looking. I was talking to someone this morning about a guy that I served with on a body that I was elected to when I was still quite young, and I remember his advice that it was important in driving, to keep your eye on the rear vision mirror, and which was an important message. You've got to keep your eye on the road ahead, but you've got to focus on the road ahead, but you've got to keep your eye on the rear vision mirror, because history does have a habit of repeating. And it's a really good metaphor for life, and actually a really good metaphor for this LTP. We have to forge on. We have to be forward looking. We have to ensure that that we deliver the expectations that have been set for us by our community and residents who participated in the election that we've just had. This, and I've said right at the beginning of this letter that it starts in the same year as the commemoration of the 10th anniversary of that devastating earthquake that changed our city forever. And then I talked about the additional challenges that we face, and that's why risk and resilience is embedded in this LTP. It has to be. And then we looked at the level of government intervention. We looked at the loss of accreditation as a building consent authority. We looked at the response to the tsunami warning as a result of the Huranui Kaikoura earthquake. We looked at the Port Hills fire, the loss of secure water status. And it might sound as if I'm looking back, but and then, of course, we had the terrible attacks on our 2 mosques earlier this year. And it might be that I'm looking back, but I'm not, because all these are examples of how a council can be thrown off balance. And we have to have headroom. We have to have the ability to respond, and we have to be able to do so with the sense not only of the challenges that they pose, but the opportunities that they will always offer if we look for them. And I see climate change, for example, as an incredible opportunity as well as a challenge. And so we've built this into the way that we want to approach the LTP, and this one, as I say, is a really important one for putting that line in the sand and enabling us to move on. So on that motion, I will put that letter of expectation part of the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we move on to the council strategic framework, because I do know that councillors have reflected further and thought that there were other items that should have been covered, but it's always difficult to think of.
So we're going to do them at the meeting?
Going to be covered.
So we're going to do them at the meeting, are we, Leanne? Okay.
They're relatively small, but right. So I'll take Mike, because what?
Would you like me to set the scene before we take questions?
Yeah. Okay. If you set the scene.
Yeah.
All right. So Dawn's going to set the scene, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. So thank you, members, and I think this builds on the discussion you've just had in terms of the letter of expectation. The important thing I would commend members for the effort and time they put into a very wide-ranging discussion when we ran the workshop. It allowed a great deal of debate across a whole series of different activities which were incorporated into the changes that have been made into the document. The reflections I would say to you would be, in particular, when we think about the header right under the draft strategic framework, which states quite clearly that this is about developing resilience in the 21st century. That runs all the way through this document, and it sets the foundation stone for what it is you wish to achieve in this next period. It doesn't need to be reiterated at every single level, because it clearly is there right at the top of the page. The second I would also add is the importance of our relationships with our Maori colleagues, and that then again is truly reflected here, as it has been in the past but continues to be your future, and I think that really is crucial. But the principles have been honed down. You debated those clearly and turned those into plainer language for our communities and partners that can understand, and I think that is reflective of the debate that we had. But fundamentally, when we look at issues around transport, climate change, how we get the city moving, all of that is embedded, whether that's within our community outcomes, within our principles, or within our strategic priorities. And I know the team worked hard in terms of drawing those things together in relation to the document that we now have. And then finally, by distilling in terms of getting our core business done, I would reflect actually that what we have done is enhanced your original strategic framework by putting right up front in that very first box engagement with our communities and partners, which was an element that was not there in the past. It might have been implicit, but it wasn't explicit, and you've made that the first step within the strategic framework in terms of how we will do our basic core work, and I think that's crucially important. And then at the very end, on the last box, absolutely, not only do we monitor, but we report on our progress to show how we're achieving what it is that we're trying to achieve. I don't know if the team want to add anything further. Leanne?
I don't have anything to add.
No, I think that summarises the points from the workshop.
Thank you. So one of the ones that did come up in conversation was the promotion of active and public transport, and I did actually wonder whether there was any problem with adding that to healthy environment. When we actually think about the role that it plays, I mean, it could be in livable city. Yeah. It is a well-connected and accessible city, so promoting active and public transport, if we could just add those words into the livable city, yeah. So, yeah, and I know that some people want to debate whether they need to be called out in the strategic priorities, but I guess that, you know, we've worked quite hard to hone it down, but anyway, we'll do that. So Mike and Pauline and Aaron.
No, it was just covered.
Yeah, thank you. In the community outcomes and healthy environment, we've got unique landscapes and Indigenous biodiversity are valued, and I thought we could put and stewardship exercised. So I think it's nice to have that word in there. Just valuing is one thing, but actually exercising our stewardship is another. Is that all right?
That's for you.
Is it? Yeah.
I think that strengthens it.
Yep. Yep. Aaron.
Just under the livable city, the traffic one, making traffic flow.
Very detailed.
What's that?
No,
lots of bikes,
no.
but
We've got a well-connected and accessible city. I think the intention is that it's easy to get around.
right.
The whole city, not just parts of the city, and we're adding into that promotion of active and public transport.
Yeah, and making traffic flow.
I just can't see that that's.
You could have even flow.
Right. Well, maybe I'm the only one that's ever received emails on it.
No, it's not.
Right. Yeah, but people complain that the traffic doesn't flow, and should we not have a strategy to make it? Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that
Like
you
we
can't
take away
call
rubbish
out
as well.
every aspect. I mean, under prosperous economy, we've got it's a great place for people, business, and investment, and it's a modern and robust city infrastructure and community facilities. I mean, it's just you can't call out every single different element of what makes a city tick. Yeah, Anne.
Going for a while, but it's really great. And just in terms of, is it 4.5, work to embed the strategic framework into council work programs, is there any opportunity, and it's just a question, about how could we in some way get the strategic priorities highlighted on a report? So which strategic priorities actually being mostly focused on, in a report, and I don't know whether that's possible or not, but I think that would be quite helpful. I would find that helpful. So it kind of refocuses.
So, Anne, absolutely we can do that. I would expect us to be able to show, as we move into our new reporting framework, that we're clearly highlighting that in terms of what is the main area of our strategic framework we're driving for. And I would also expect, as we move forward and evolve, that we're also showing on what outcomes and impact we expect to do by the decision that you're making.
Good. All right. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.
Can I thank members?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I would like to say I thought the workshop was a great piece of collaborative work, and to get through the strategic framework in this manner is very positive, and give me my chance to say Merry Christmas to you all as well.